Now in Algebra 15, we're going to look at the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula, everyone knows about the quadratic formula. Minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. What are the a's, b's and c's? Well, the a's, b's and c's relate to your quadratic formula. A is the coefficient of x squared. First example we're going to do is a is equal to 1. B is the number in the middle, in this case minus 12. And c is equal to 32. So every time you do this question, write down your variables. A is 1, b is minus 12, and c is 32. And we're going to fill these three variables into this formula. How's that going to work? Really simply, if you're good at maths. So minus b is minus 12. Anytime in math you're about to say minus 12, you could just write plus 12 from now on. I'm going to show you the minus 12 just for now. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 12. Very important you put it in a bracket to be squared minus 4 times a times c. All divided by 2 times a. So we're going to get 12 plus or minus, use your calculator if you're not 100% confident with these. 144 is 12 squared, and 4 32s is 120 plus 8, which is minus 128, all divided by 2. So what are we left with? 12 plus or minus the square root of 16 divided by 2. So we have two solutions as in all quadratics. 12 plus 4 over 2, the square root of 16 being 4, and 12 minus 4 over 2, which gives me 16 over 2, which is 8, and 8 over 2, which is 4. Now, most of the time we use the quadratic formula, we're asked to write our answer correct to 2 decimal places. I've deliberately chosen one that factorizes and gives me solutions first. So let's just go back up and look at our equation. And I'm going to write it here, x squared minus 12x plus 32. So just to show you the quadratic formula, if you can't factorize something, if you're stuck in a factorization, you can write out the minus b formula really quickly. It works for every quadratic. Now you could also it's minus sign here, plus sign here, 2 minuses, x minus 8 by x minus 4 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 8 or 4. So you could factorize it like that, get your solutions really quickly if it factorizes. But when you're asked to use the quadratic formula, most of the time it doesn't factorize to give whole numbers, so it's impossible to come up with 2 factors like this. So that's where the quadratic formula comes in, when we're looking for decimalized answers. So let's do a few where there's decimalized answers. Okay, so go ahead and practice these 2 questions. I think it's good maths to write the formula out each time, so write the formula out each time before you start the question. Pause the video and do the questions, and then look at the solutions. So, as I said previously, write down your A, B, and C. Now fill it in. Minus 2. Plus 2. Plus or minus, there are my 2 solutions, the square root of b squared minus 2 squared. Now I would recommend, if you're squaring a negative number, that you just put it in as positive, but we'll put it in as negative for now. B squared minus 4 by a by c. If you get a negative number inside the square root, you've done something wrong. It won't be till we get the complex numbers that we'll be able to get the square root of a negative number. All over 2a. So write your 2 solutions out. We've 2 plus the square root of something over 2. And we've 2 minus the square root of something over 2. So what do we have inside the square root? Let's have a look. We have 4. 2 squared is 4. And we have a minus here and a minus here. So it's going to give me a plus. And 4 29s. Well, 4 25s is 100. 4 4s is 16. So 116. And you can see then in the second bracket, you can straight away write 120. So 2 plus root 20, 120 on your calculator, then divide your answer by 2, and 2 minus the square root of 120 divided by 2. So when we simplify these, the square root of 120 is 10.95. So plus 2 is 12.95 divided by 2. Write your answer to the side, 6.475. And 8.95 divided by 2 is 4.475. And that's a minus, and that's a plus. So you can see that's 3 decimal places. The question will state how to write your answer. What about the next one? So A is equal to 1, B is equal to minus 5, and C is equal to minus 28. You've written out your formula. Minus B is minus minus 5, so 5 plus or minus the square root. And this is where I'm going to just put the positive 5 in. 5 squared minus 4 by 1 by minus 28, all divided by 2a. So we have 5 plus the square root of 25 plus a minus by a minus gives a plus 428. So 425 is 100 and 4 3s is 12, all divided by 2. And we have 5 minus the square root of 25 plus 112, all divided by 2. So we just use our calculator to get these answers. Make sure not to divide first. 5 plus root 125 plus 112. You can type that into a calculator. You don't have to simplify it to 137. Your calculator will do that work for you. Press equals before dividing by 2. So the two solutions that you should have got here are 8.35, corrected 2dp, 2 decimal places, and minus 3.35. Now, these can't get much harder. It's putting information in. I'll test you with a couple of these, and then we'll look at to see what happens when you're asked to write your answer in surd form. So test yourself on these two questions and then look to the solution. So you're going to have written the formula. Let's write it at the top here. Minus b plus or minus. The more times you write it, it'll just become second knowledge. B squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. A is equal to 5. B is equal to 4. C is equal to minus 5. When you get really good at these, your calculator will do all of the work for you, but normally we'll show a couple of stages. So we have minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 by 5 by minus 5. And again, if we get a negative sign inside there, we've done something wrong, over 2 times a, which is 2 times 5. So minus 4 plus the square root of 16. We've 2 negatives again, so it's 4 by 5 by 5, so 425 is plus 100. Over 2 5s are 10. That's one solution. And we have minus 4 minus the square root of 116 over 10. So write your answer, correct at 2 decimal places. So your solutions, 0.677, which rounds off to 0.68, and minus 1.477, which rounds off to minus 1.48. So the second one, again, let's write our information. A is equal to 3, B is equal to minus 9, and C is equal to 5. I'll do it in a different color. So we have minus minus 9 plus 9 plus or minus the square root of b squared. I'll put in that 9 squared. If you put a minus here and don't put a bracket and put it into your calculator, it'll come out as minus 81. So b squared minus 4 by 3 by 5, all divided by 2 times 3. So we have 9 plus the square root of 81, and it's going to be a negative this time. 4 5s are 20 by 3 is 60, divided by 6, and we have 9 minus the square root of 81 minus 60, which you can see is 19 in the second part, divided by 6. So write your answers this time to 1 decimal place, and you get 2.22, which rounds off to 2.2, 0.77, which rounds off to 0.8. Okay, so let's have a look at the last part of the quadratic equation. You're asked to write your answer in surd form, which is square root form. So we leave our answer inside the square root. A is equal to 1, B is equal to minus 6, and C is equal to 1. So minus B minus minus 6. So 6 plus or minus the square root of. Again, I'm putting it in as a positive number because we square it. It's going to be positive. 6 squared minus 4 by 1 by 1. all over 2 times 1. So we get 6 plus the square root of 36 minus 4 over 2, and 6 minus the square root of 32 over 2. So the square root of 32, we've seen this in a previous lesson, is equal to the square root of 4 by the square root of 8. It's also equal to the square root of 16 by the square root of 2, which is equal to 4 root 2, which is what your calculator will give you if you type it in. It'll give you surd form first, and then you can change it to a decimal using the SD button. So this is going to become 6 plus 4 root 2 over 2. And when you're asked in surd form, this bottom number will divide into the two top numbers. And we have 6 minus 4 root 2 over 2. So the first solution, I'll write them here. The first solution will be 6 for this one. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 4 root 2 divided by 2 is 2 root 2. And the other solution is going to be 3 minus 2 root 2. So surd form. So one more example, and then you guys can test yourself with a couple more. Minus b is minus 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 4 squared, minus 4 by 2 by 1, 4ac, all divided by 2a, which is 2 times 2, thinking of the answer and writing the answer, minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 8, over 2 2's are 4. So we have minus 4 plus the square root of 8 over 4, and minus 4 minus the square root of 8 over 4. So square root of 8, just do it down the bottom here. Square root of 8 is equal to root 4 by root 2, which is equal to 2 root 2. So we're going to get minus 4, let's draw a little line here, minus 4 plus 2 root 2 over 4, which is going to give me minus 1, and 2 over 4 is a half, plus a half root 2, or root 2 over 2. I'll write root 2 over 2 for the next part. And we're going to get minus 1 minus root 2 over 2, or a half root 2. So these will be my two solutions for the second question. Now, test yourself with the following 3. Now, test yourself with these 3 surd solutions. So it should look like the previous 2 questions. So you've practiced these questions. Let's look at the answers. Minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 by 4a by c, which is minus 1. All divided. Now I'm putting the 2 times 4 just over here so it's a little bit neater. So we have minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 4, and 4 4s are 16, and we can see the two negatives are going to give a positive, so 4 plus 16 over 8, which is 2 plus the square root of 20 over 8, and 2 minus the square root of 20 over 8. Come down here and do the square root of 20. Root 5 by root 4, or root 4 by root 5, which is 2 root 5. So we have 2 plus 2 root 5 over 8, and 2 minus 2 root 5 over 8. So that's going to give me 2 over 8, or 1 over 4, plus 1 over 4 root 5, 2 over 8 root 5, which is root 5 over 4. And then obviously the negative version of that is 1 over 4 minus root 5 over 4. Now we have minus minus 12 plus 12, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 12 squared, minus 4 by 1 by 14, all divided by 2 times 1. So we have 12 plus or minus the square root of 144, minus this time 4 14s are 56 over 2. This is going to give a value of 12 plus or minus the square root of 88 over 2. 12 plus or minus, the highest square number divides into 88 is 4, so it's going to be root 4 by root 22 over 2, which is going to be 6 plus or minus The 2 and the root 4 will cancel. 6 plus or minus root 22. So just to write it in a different format than previously. Now we have minus 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 by 5, all divided by 2 4s. So we have minus 10 plus or minus the square root of 100 minus 4 4s are 16 times 5 is 80 over 8. So we have minus 10 plus or minus the square root of 20 over 8. Root 20, what's root 20? Root 4 by root 5, we had it in question 1. So 2 root 5s. So we have minus 10 plus or minus 2 root 5 over 8, which is minus 10 over 8 or minus 5 over 4 plus or minus 1 over 4 or 2 over 8 root 5 or 1 over 4 root 5 or just root 5 over 4. So hopefully you've gotten these 3 tricky enough surd questions correct. Move on to the next video.